one of the requirements pursuant to the city charter is that, this is true for all our dispositions, is that after ULURP approval, there's an approval required by the Mayor's Office of Contract Services. This is pursuant to the city charter, so typically, that mayoral consideration cannot happen until after council approval of the disposition of the ULURP action, the pursuant to UDAP. So the Mayor's Office of Contract Services approves what we call the broad business terms of the proposed project. And at that time, there is a description of the very general business terms that goes to the Mayor's Office of Contract Services. There's a mayoral public hearing, and then there's a formal approval afterwards. So the detailed business terms are in process as the ULURP process is moving ahead. Those negotiations have not been finalized, and we would anticipate, the anticipation is that after the ULURP process is completed, there would be mayoral consideration for the overall business terms. So this is, conceptually, it's no different than any other disposition that's subject to ULURP. We must go to the Mayor's Office of Contract Services, to what we call a draft land disposition agreement. That's not a final agreement. That the final agreement only gets negotiated at the time of the closing of the actual conveyance of the site, which is typically tied to a financial closing and a construction closing. So all of those things happen even after mayoral approval, but the mayoral process itself does capture the general business terms of the project, including the proposed disposition price, which is based on an appraisal. That appraisal is made available to the public, required by the city charter. We're not at that point yet because that appraisal is not approved or not made available until the time of the mayoral public hearing. So I just wanted to summarize how the process works technically.
So, but what does that mean with respect to whether the funds that are for the park will actually just go into the general fund, or will be isolated and kept available to
the fund,
the city, to this neighborhood,
so just to
to
clarify,
this project?
Right, so the $2.5 million that's being proposed by, is a proposed contribution from the developer that would be directly tied to the park improvement. Any value that the city gets from the sale of the property is part of the, again, would be, normally does go to the general fund. That is the mechanism. If there is a proposal at some point during the process that some of those funds be used for another purpose, not go to the general fund, I mean, that could be, that's really related to the mayoral approval process.
So what voice do we have in asking that it gets kept?
I mean, if there's if the board wants to make a recommendation that some of those funds be used for some purpose, I mean, the board can make a recommendation.
So you'll make that recommendation to add to this?
Also, originally, wasn't there $7.5 million of city funds that were supposed to go to Large Park? And right now, you're saying that there's 4.5?
Well, I can't speak for the Parks Department. I think we
As part of the points of agreement, wasn't
Right.
I mean, between the city's money, and again, all I can say is between the city's money and our contribution, it's $7 million.
But I think we should revisit the amounts that were originally supposed to be given to that part of the commission.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to address from our recommendation?
Sure, and again, I think we talked about sort of the projects that we're pursuing from an affordable housing standpoint. The thought that we had about the original distribution based on the points of agreement. And just there were a couple of other things. In terms of community preferences, that's something that's part of the project program. 50% is in fact the obligations and requirements of the program. And so that's something that we fully embrace and want to work with the community in the best way possible to make sure we are capturing the right pool.
Except that ours, we are asking for,
Did this place?
we are asking that the 50% community preference is limited to the 40 to 60% AMI, so that all of the 40, so that it's not just spread out to anything higher than 60%, because our people, in our opinion, cannot really, the homesteaders, the people who've been displaced, they can't take advantage of something higher than 60%. So we are asking that the 50% preference, our people,
Be skewed to.
be skewed to the 40 and 60%.
And I think the question, Jack, is whether that is possible under the program.
Well,
just
I
so
think
we, like,
the
look
way-
at it as an idea.
The way our marketing process has been structured is that all of the project's units, whatever the AMI bands are, is subject to a 50% preference. So I think, I don't know that we've had a situation, let's put it this way, the market, the 50% preference would be based on the ultimate income distribution, whatever it is, whatever the affordable distribution is. If it's between 40 and 60 or 40 and 120, there's always a 50% preference for the whole number of units that's subject to HPD marketing oversight.
And I understand that, and I also am under the impression that this is the first time that a community board has asked for this. So I don't even expect that you can give us an answer to that, but I'm hoping that in the future, more community boards will put pressure for this, whatever.
If I could just add, that, just in terms of a larger public policy point of view,